Most people believe rejection is an event, a closed door, an unanswered message, a promotion that never came, a room that suddenly grows quiet when they begin to speak. But Schopenhauer would argue that rejection begins long before any of those moments exist. It begins the instant your peace depends on another person's approval. From that moment on, you no longer own yourself. You become a prisoner waiting for invisible judges to announce your value. The strange part is that those judges are usually too busy defending their own fragile image to think about yours. Yet millions sacrifice their confidence to impress people who barely remember them tomorrow. Society calls this confidence. Schopenhauer would call it slavery disguised as belonging. The deeper truth is even darker. Rejection rarely wounds your identity. It wounds the identity you secretly invented. You are not grieving reality. You are grieving a fantasy that expected applause. This is why two people can face the same rejection and walk away completely differently. One becomes bitter. The other becomes free. The difference is not talent. It is attachment. Today, the world measures every opinion with likes, followers, promotions, invitations, and endless comparisons. Every number quietly whispers the same lie. Become acceptable first, then you will deserve peace. Schopenhauer spent his life exposing that lie. He believed suffering grows wherever desire controls perception, and few desires are stronger than the desire to be accepted. If you can understand why rejection terrifies the human mind, you may discover that the fear itself was never your enemy. It was the chain keeping your life in someone else's hands. And once you see that chain clearly, you cannot pretend it was never there.
Number 1. The invisible auction. Every day you enter an invisible marketplace without noticing it. You measure your words before speaking. You edit your personality before entering a meeting. You hesitate before posting an opinion online. None of these actions feel dramatic. They feel normal. That is exactly why they are dangerous. Modern life rewards visibility while quietly punishing authenticity. Schopenhauer observed that human beings chase recognition because they mistake it for security. They believe admiration creates stability. In reality, it creates dependence. Imagine two founders presenting the same bold idea to investors. One walks away after rejection and immediately improves the proposal. The other spends weeks wondering whether the investors disliked his personality. Both experienced the same outcome. Only one surrendered his mind to it. The surprising truth is that rejection often reveals where your identity has been outsourced. You do not suffer because someone refused you. You suffer because their opinion occupied a throne inside your mind that never belonged to them. Once another person becomes the judge of your worth, every conversation becomes an auction where you silently bid pieces of yourself for approval. Few people recognize this transaction because it happens beneath consciousness. The greatest prison is the one decorated to look like opportunity. But if approval is a marketplace, who taught you that your value could ever be sold?
Number 2. The mirror that never answers. Most people spend years trying to become someone impossible to reject. They work harder, dress better, speak more carefully, hide every strange thought that might disturb the crowd. Yet the more perfect the reflection becomes, the less familiar it feels. Schopenhauer believed that desire expands faster than satisfaction. Approval obeys the same law. One compliment creates hunger for another. One success raises the standard for the next. The mirror never says enough because the problem was never the mirror. Consider social media. A creator celebrates reaching 100,000 followers, then immediately worries about losing engagement. Nothing external changed except the size of the audience. Internally, the fear only evolved into a larger version of itself. This is the paradox that traps ambitious people. Achievement often increases anxiety because it creates more to defend. The world praises confidence, yet much of what appears as confidence is merely sophisticated fear wearing expensive clothes. Real freedom begins when your reflection no longer negotiates with strangers. The day you stop asking the mirror for permission to exist is the day rejection loses its favorite weapon. But if approval cannot give lasting peace, what remains after you stop chasing it?
Number 3. The tyranny of expectation. Rejection becomes unbearable only after expectation has quietly rewritten reality. Long before another person says no, the mind has already imagined the promotion, the relationship, the invitation, or the victory as something that belongs to it. Schopenhauer argued that desire does not simply pursue outcomes. It claims ownership over futures that have never existed. When those imagined futures collapse, people call it heartbreak. In truth, they are mourning a story, not a fact. Think about a talented employee overlooked for leadership. One person studies the decision, adjusts, and moves forward. Another spends years replaying the moment, convinced life betrayed him. The office remains the same. Only the invisible script inside the mind has changed. Expectation transforms possibility into entitlement without asking permission from reality. This is why rejection feels personal. It exposes the distance between the world that exists and the world the ego secretly demanded. The more detailed the fantasy, the sharper the disappointment. Yet the collapse of expectation is not always a loss. Sometimes it is the first honest conversation reality has ever had with you. Once that illusion disappears, another question begins to emerge. If expectation creates suffering, what created expectation in the first place? Number 4. The hunger that cannot be fed. Schopenhauer believed that human desire behaves like a fire consuming the very fuel that keeps it alive. Every achievement briefly satisfies before becoming ordinary. Every acceptance creates the need for another acceptance. Every victory quietly introduces a higher mountain. This endless movement explains why some of the world's most admired people remain terrified of criticism. They are not protecting success. They are protecting an identity built entirely on external confirmation. Look at modern business. A company dominates its industry for years, yet executives still panic over one disappointing quarter because markets rarely reward yesterday's triumph. The same pattern governs personal life. Someone praised for intelligence becomes afraid of appearing uninformed. Someone admired for kindness fears disappointing everyone. Someone known for strength becomes terrified of vulnerability. The reward slowly transforms into a cage. The world mistakes this tension for ambition, but Schopenhauer would recognize something deeper. The will never stops demanding more because its purpose is movement, not peace. The person chasing universal approval eventually discovers there is no finish line. Every destination becomes another starting point. The cruel irony is that the harder you try to avoid rejection, the more power rejection gains over your decisions. But if desire itself cannot produce freedom, perhaps freedom begins by confronting something entirely different. Number 5. The quiet strength of indifference. Indifference is often confused with emotional emptiness, but Schopenhauer pointed toward something far more disciplined. Genuine indifference does not mean refusing to care. It means refusing to surrender your inner stability to forces beyond your control. A mountain remains unchanged, whether travelers praise its beauty or complain about its height. Its silence is not arrogance, it is independence. Modern life encourages the opposite. Algorithms reward outrage. Meetings reward agreement. Relationships sometimes reward performance instead of honesty. Under these conditions, people gradually become actors, memorizing versions of themselves that receive the fewest objections. The tragedy is not rejection. The tragedy is forgetting who existed before the performance began. Consider the entrepreneur whose product fails publicly. If identity depends on success, failure destroys the person. If identity depends on character, failure becomes information. The event remains painful, but it no longer defines existence. This distinction is where psychological freedom quietly appears. The strongest individuals are not those who never hear criticism. They are those whose direction survives it. Once another person's approval is no longer your emotional currency, rejection loses the authority it once possessed. And when that authority disappears, a more unsettling realization slowly comes into view. Perhaps the greatest prison was never built by other people at all.